Dr. Amanda Blake wiped the sweat from her forehead as she pushed through the thick jungle vines. The crimson leaves of Kepler 442b created a canopy so dense that barely any sunlight reached the forest floor. Behind her, Dr. Kevin Ross struggled with his heavy scanning equipment while their Zephyrian guide, Veltar, moved silently ahead like a ghost through the trees. "How much further?" Kevin asked, breathing hard. The humidity made everything sticky and uncomfortable. Veltar turned back, his tall, thin body seeming to glow with a soft blue light. "Not far now, human friends. The Temple of the Ancients waits just beyond the next ridge." Amanda had been on dozens of alien worlds, but Kepler 442b felt different. The air itself seemed to hum with some kind of energy that made her skin tingle. The Zephyrians had built their entire civilization around temples like this one, treating them as sacred places where their gods once walked. But something about the whole setup bothered her. They climbed a ridge and suddenly the jungle opened up into a massive clearing. In the center stood the temple, and Amanda's breath caught in her throat. It was enormous, easily the size of a city block back on Earth. Black stone walls rose up in perfect geometric shapes, covered in symbols that seemed to shift and move in the corner of her eye. "Beautiful, is it not?" Veltar said softly. "My people have prayed here for 1,000 generations." Kevin was already unpacking his equipment. "Amanda, you need to see this. The energy readings are off the charts. This thing is putting out more power than a fusion reactor." "That's impossible," Amanda said. "The Zephyrians don't use advanced technology. They're completely peaceful. They don't even have weapons." She walked closer to the temple walls and pulled out her translation device. The symbols were unlike anything she had seen before. They looked almost familiar, but that couldn't be right. Humans had only been in space for 200 years. These temples were supposed to be thousands of years old. "Veltar, tell me again about your creation myths," she said, running her scanner over the wall. The Zephyrians' large eyes grew distant. "In the beginning, the war gods ruled the stars. They fought great battles across the heavens and brought peace through strength. But one day they grew tired of war and chose to sleep, leaving behind these sacred places so we would remember them." Amanda frowned. War gods didn't fit with what she knew about Zephyrian culture. They were the most peaceful species in the known galaxy. They didn't even have words for violence in their language. Kevin called out from across the clearing. "Amanda, you need to get over here right now." She hurried over to where he was crouched next to a section of wall covered in particularly complex symbols. His face was pale. "What is it?" she asked. "I ran these symbols through the translation matrix. Amanda, these aren't Zephyrian. They're not even close." "Then what are they?" Kevin looked up at her with wide eyes. "They're human. Ancient human, but definitely human. The computer found matches in old Earth languages. Latin, Greek, Sanskrit, even some Proto-Germanic roots." Amanda stared at the wall. "That's impossible. Humans weren't even spacefaring when these temples were built." "I know what I'm reading," Kevin said. "And there's more. These symbols, they're not religious text, they're tactical manuals." "What?" Kevin pointed to a section of the wall. "See this sequence here? It's describing fleet formations. And this part talks about orbital bombardment strategies." "Amanda, these walls are covered in military instructions." Veltar had moved closer and was listening to their conversation. His usual calm expression had changed to something like worry. "You can read the ancient writing?" he asked. "Apparently we can," Amanda said. "Veltar, are you sure your people built these temples?" The Zephyrian was quiet for a long moment. "We have always assumed so. The temples have been here longer than our oldest records, but perhaps we were wrong." Amanda activated her portable lab unit and began taking detailed scans of the symbols. As the computer processed the data, more translations appeared on her screen. What she read made her stomach turn cold. The walls described massive space battles, involving thousands of ships. They talked about strategic planning on a galactic scale. They mentioned weapons that could destroy entire star systems and defensive systems that could protect whole sectors of space. But most disturbing of all, they talked about an enemy called the Devourers that came from beyond the galaxy. "Kevin, look at this," she said, showing him her screen. According to these inscriptions, there was once a huge human empire called the Terran Dominion. They controlled hundreds of star systems and had technology we can't even imagine. But how is that possible? Human civilization on Earth shows no signs of ever having advanced technology like this. Amanda kept reading. It says here that the Terran Dominion faced a great threat from outside the galaxy. Something so dangerous that they had to make a terrible choice. What kind of choice? They abandoned everything. The entire empire retreated to a single world and erased all traces of their advanced civilization. They even wiped their own memories to hide from whatever was hunting them. Kevin was scanning more sections of the wall. "Amanda, these symbols here talk about failsafe systems. Something called the Awakening Protocol." Before Amanda could respond, her communicator buzzed. The voice of Captain Jake Murphy came through. From their ship in orbit. "Dr. Blake, we're picking up some unusual energy spikes from your location. Everything okay down there?" Amanda looked around the temple clearing. The black stone walls seemed to be glowing brighter than before. "We're fine, Captain. Just making some interesting discoveries." "Copy that, but keep your eyes open. We've got reports of Mordani ships moving through this sector. Command wants all civilian teams ready for immediate evacuation if necessary." The connection ended and Amanda turned back to the temple. The Mordani Collective was bad news. They were an aggressive military empire that had been expanding their territory for years. If they were moving into this area, it meant trouble. Veltar approached them cautiously. "Dr. Blake, may I ask what you have discovered about our temples?" Amanda hesitated. How could she explain that everything the Zephyrians believed about their sacred sites might be wrong? That these temples weren't built by peaceful gods, but by an ancient human war machine. "We're still analyzing the data," she said, carefully. "But it appears these temples have a more complex history than anyone realized." As she spoke, something strange happened. The symbols on the nearest wall began to pulse with a soft light. Kevin's scanning equipment started beeping rapidly. "Amanda, the energy readings just jumped by 300%, he said. The temple was responding to their presence. But why now? The Zephyrians had been visiting these sites for thousands of years without triggering any reaction. Amanda walked closer to the glowing wall and placed her hand against the stone. The moment her skin made contact, the entire temple shuddered. Deep beneath their feet, something that had been sleeping for millennia began to wake up. "Kevin, we need to contact the ship immediately," she said. But before Kevin could respond, the ground beneath the temple split open with a sound like thunder. Ancient machinery, dormant for thousands of years, began to hum with power. The Temple of the Ancients was revealing its true nature, and Amanda realized they had just triggered something that would change the course of galactic history. The peaceful jungle clearing was about to become the center of a storm that would sweep across the stars. Humanity's forgotten past was awakening, and with it, the return of powers that even the ancient Terran Dominion had feared to face. Admiral Lisa Carter stood on the bridge of the UES horizon, watching the data streams coming in from the planet below. The reports from Dr. Blake's team were impossible to believe, but the evidence was right there on her screens. The temple wasn't just a building. It was a machine, and it was waking up. "Admiral, we're receiving similar reports from 12 other human expedition teams across the sector," reported Lieutenant Commander Paul Baker. "Every temple site is showing the same energy patterns." Lisa rubbed her temples. "In the past 6 Hours, everything they thought they knew about human history had been turned upside down. Ancient human temples on alien worlds. Technology that responded only to human DNA. References to a galactic empire that supposedly never existed. "Get me a direct line to Earth Command," she ordered. "They need to know about this immediately." Down on the planet, Dr. Rachel Stone was having the time of her life. The temple's central chamber had revealed itself when the floor panels slid away, exposing a massive crystalline structure that pulsed with blue-white energy. Her instruments were going crazy trying to measure the power output. "This is incredible," she said to Amanda and Kevin. "The crystal is some kind of quantum processor. It's more advanced than anything we have on Earth." Amanda was still trying to process what they had discovered. "Rachel, the symbols on the walls say these temples were built as a failsafe system. But a failsafe against what?" "I don't know yet, but I think we're about to find out," Rachel said, pointing to the crystal. "Look at the patterns in the energy flow. It's not random. It's structured, like a computer program starting up." Veltar had been unusually quiet since the temple began its transformation. His people were deeply spiritual, and learning that their sacred sites belonged to another species was clearly troubling him. "Dr. Blake," he said softly, "my people have ancient stories about the temples. We always thought they were myths, but perhaps they were memories." "What kind of stories?" Amanda asked. "Stories of the sleeping guardians. They say that when the galaxy faces its darkest hour, the guardians will wake from their long sleep and take up arms once more. My people believe it was just a legend." Before Amanda could respond, her communicator crackled to life. "Captain Jake." Murphy's voice came through, tense with urgency. "All teams, this is Captain Murphy. We have a situation. Long-range sensors are detecting a massive fleet approaching our position. Mordani ships, at least 50 of them." Amanda felt her heart sink. The Mordani Collective was known for their aggressive expansion policies. If they had come in force, it meant they intended to claim this entire system. "Captain, what's our status?" she asked. "We've got one exploration ship and a small defense escort. We're completely outgunned. Admiral Carter is trying to negotiate, but the Mordani aren't responding to our communications." Rachel was studying her instruments with growing excitement. "Amanda, I think the temple is trying to tell us something. The energy patterns are changing, and they're getting stronger." As if responding to her words, the crystal in the center of the chamber began to project a holographic display. Images formed in the air above it, showing star maps and fleet formations that none of them recognized. "These are tactical displays," Kevin said, staring at the hologram. "Look at the detail. This is military planning on a scale we've never seen." Before, the display shifted, showing a different view. This time they could see massive ships, larger than anything in the current human fleet. The vessels had a distinctly human design, but they were covered in symbols matching those on the temple walls. "Those are Terran Dominion ships," Amanda breathed. The ancient human empire really existed. Suddenly, the temple shuddered again. But this time, instead of just the ground shaking, the entire structure began to rise. The jungle around them fell away as the temple revealed its true form. It wasn't a building at all. It was a ship, a fortress ship that had been buried in the planet's surface for thousands of years. "Oh my God," Rachel whispered. The ship was enormous, easily 10 times the size of the horizon. Its hull was covered in the same black stone as the temple walls, but now they could see it was some kind of advanced armor. Weapons ports opened along its length, revealing guns that looked like they could destroy entire cities. On the bridge of the horizon, alarms were blaring. Admiral Carter watched in amazement as the temple ship rose from the planet's surface, its engines coming online with a sound like distant thunder. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the temple ship," reported her communications officer. "It's broadcasting on all frequencies. Put it through." A voice filled the bridge, speaking in ancient Earth languages that the computer was struggling to translate. But the meaning was clear enough. The ship was identifying itself as the Terra's Wrath, a fortress ship of the Terran Dominion, and it was ready to defend human interests. "Admiral," Paul Baker called out, "sensors are detecting similar energy signatures on 11 other worlds in this sector. The other temples are waking up too." Lisa stared at the displays showing the massive ship. "How many of these things are there?" "Unknown, ma'am. But if the historical records Dr. Blake found are accurate, there could be hundreds." Inside the Terra's Wrath, Amanda and her team were experiencing something that would have been impossible just hours before. The ship's AI systems had recognized their human DNA and were beginning to interface with them directly. Information flowed into their minds, teaching them about the ship's capabilities and the history of the Terran Dominion. "This is overwhelming," Kevin said, holding his head. "It's like the ship is downloading thousands of years of military knowledge directly into my brain. The ship is trying to prepare us," Amanda realized. "It knows something we don't." Rachel was studying the new data flowing through her instruments. "Amanda, according to the ship's records, the Terran Dominion didn't just disappear. They were forced to retreat by something called the Devourers, entities that came from outside the galaxy and consumed entire civilizations. The same threat mentioned in the temple inscriptions," Amanda said. "But here's the scary part," Rachel continued. "The ship's long-range sensors are detecting energy signatures that match the Devourer descriptions. They're not just a historical threat, they're coming back." Outside, the Mordani fleet had finally arrived in the system. Their commander, Fleet Admiral Zex Kor, was known throughout the galaxy for his ruthless tactics. He had come to claim the Temple Worlds for the Collective, but what he found was far more than he had bargained for. "Report," he demanded from his flagship bridge. "Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures from the planet's surface. Multiple ships are rising from what we thought were archaeological sites." Zexkor studied the tactical display. The ships emerging from the planets were unlike anything in the Mordani database. They were clearly of human design, but their energy signatures suggested technology far beyond current human capabilities. "How many ships total?" 12 confirmed so far, sir. But they're each larger than our entire battle group." Zexkor's tactical instincts told him he was facing something dangerous. But the Mordani way was to attack first and ask questions later. "All ships, prepare for combat. We claim this system in the name of the Collective." Back on the Terra's Wrath, the ship's AI was preparing for battle. It had been sleeping for millennia, but its programming was clear. Protect humanity. Defend the galaxy. Prepare for the return of the Devour. Amanda felt the ship's weapon systems coming online. The sensation was strange, like flexing muscles she didn't know she had. The ship was treating her and her team as its command crew, downloading tactical knowledge and strategic planning directly into their minds. "This is incredible," she said. "I can feel the ship's capabilities. It's like nothing we've ever built." "Amanda," Rachel said urgently, "the ship is trying to warn us about something. The Mordani fleet is just the beginning. There's something much worse coming." As if summoned by her words, the ship's long-range sensors detected new contacts at the edge of the system. Ships that didn't match any known design, moving in patterns that seemed to defy physics. The Devourers had returned, drawn by the awakening of the Temple ships, the ancient enemy that had once forced humanity to abandon. Its galactic empire was coming back to finish what it had started, and this time, humanity's war gods were ready for them. The ancient AI of the Terra's Wrath spoke directly into Amanda's mind, its voice calm and precise despite the chaos surrounding them. The language was old, but somehow she understood every word perfectly. "Welcome, children of Terra. I am the Guardian Protocol of the fortress ship Terra's Wrath. You have awakened us at the appointed time. Amanda looked around the command chamber where she and her team now stood. The room had transformed completely from the simple temple interior they had first entered. Holographic displays showed tactical information from across the galaxy, and control stations had risen from the floor, waiting for human operators. "Guardian, what is the appointed time?" she asked aloud. "When the Devourers return from the void, beyond stars. When humanity has grown strong enough to face the darkness that once drove us into hiding." Kevin was studying one of the tactical displays, his face pale. "Amanda, look at this." The eye is showing me the final battle records from the original Terran Dominion. The hologram shifted to show a massive space battle unlike anything they had ever imagined. Thousands of human ships fought against something that barely looked real. The enemy vessels seemed to bend space around them, and wherever they passed, stars simply went dark. The Terran Dominion was winning at first. The Guardian I explained. Our tactical superiority was absolute. We had conquered half the galaxy. Not through force, but through strategic brilliance that no other species could match. But the Devourers were different. They did not fight for territory or resources. They consumed everything, turning matter and energy into more of themselves. Dr. Rachel Stone was interfacing with the ship's technical systems, and the knowledge flowing into her mind was staggering. The technology level is incredible. These ships can manufacture entire fleets from raw materials. They have weapons that can crack planets and shields that can stop supernovas. "Why did the Terran Dominion retreat?" Amanda asked the Aya. "If you were so powerful, why hide on Earth?" The holographic display changed again, showing what looked like a strategic map of the galaxy. Large sections were marked in red, indicating Devourer-controlled space. But the human territories were marked in blue, and Amanda could see they controlled far more space than the enemy. "We were winning the war," the AI said. "But victory came with a terrible price. To match the Devourers, we had to become like them. Our people grew harder, colder, more focused on war than on the lives we were protecting. The Terran Dominion was becoming a machine designed only for battle." Kevin looked up from his console. "So you chose to retreat rather than win?" "The leaders of the Dominion saw what we were becoming. They realized that defeating the Devourers by becoming like them was no victory at all. So they made the hardest choice in human history. They abandoned the entire galactic empire, retreated to Earth, and erased all knowledge of our advanced technology." "But why?" Rachel asked. "Why give up everything?" "To preserve what made us human. The hope was that someday, humanity would return to the stars naturally, through their own development. And when the Devourers returned, as we knew they would be ready to face them without losing our souls." On the bridge of the U.S. horizon, Admiral Lisa Carter was dealing with a crisis that was growing by the minute. The 12 temple ships that had awakened in their sector were just the beginning. Reports were coming in from across human space that similar structures were rising from planets, moons, and asteroid fields throughout the galaxy. "Admiral, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command," reported her communications officer. "Put it through." The image of Fleet Admiral Danny Wright appeared on the main screen. Behind him, the command center was in complete chaos. "Lisa, what's the situation in your sector?" 12 ancient human fortress ships have come online, sir. They're massive, and their technology is far beyond anything we currently have. But that's not the worst part. What's the worst part? The ship's AI systems say they were built to fight something called the Devourers. And according to their sensors, the Devourers are already in the system. Admiral Wright's face went pale. "How many other sectors are reporting similar awakenings?" "Over 200 so far, sir, and the number keeps growing." Back on the Terra's Wrath, Colonel Amy Jackson had just arrived via emergency transport from the horizon. As the ranking military officer in the sector, she found herself suddenly in command of technology that made her previous training Seemed like a child's game. The ship's AI was teaching her tactical systems that could coordinate the movements of entire fleets across multiple star systems simultaneously. Her mind was processing strategic information at a rate that should have been impossible. "Colonel Jackson," the AI said, "you have been designated as fleet commander for this sector. Your genetic markers indicate strong tactical aptitude. Do you accept command?" Amy looked around at the incredible technology surrounding her. "I accept. But I need to understand what we're facing." The holographic display changed to show real-time sensor data from the edge of the system. The contacts that Rachel had detected earlier were becoming clearer, and what Amy saw made her blood run cold. Devourer ships didn't look like ships at all. They were organic, constantly changing shape, and they seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. But the most disturbing thing was their number. The sensors were showing hundreds of them, possibly thousands. "They probe our defenses," the AI explained. "This is not their main force. They send scouts to test our response before committing to full assault." Meanwhile, the Mordani fleet, under Fleet Admiral Zexkor, had positioned itself between the human forces and the approaching Devourers. Zexkor was a veteran commander, but what he was seeing challenged everything he thought he knew about warfare. "Status report," he demanded. "Sir, the human temple ships have formed a defensive formation around the inhabited worlds. Their energy signatures are off our scales, but the unknown contacts approaching from deep space are even worse." Zexkor studied the tactical display. His original mission had been to claim the temple worlds for the Mordani Collective. But now, he was facing two unknown forces, either of which seemed capable of destroying his entire fleet. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the lead human vessel. Put it through." Colonel Amy Jackson's image appeared on the Mordani command screen. She spoke with an authority that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than her military training. "Fleet Admiral Zexkor, I am Colonel Amy Jackson, acting commander of the Terran Defense Fleet. You need to withdraw your forces immediately. The Mordani Collective does not take orders from humans," Zexkor replied. "Admiral, look at your long-range sensors. The contacts approaching from deep space are not interested in territorial disputes or political agreements. They will consume your ships, your crews, and everything you've ever built. Your only chance of survival is to coordinate with us." Zexkor was quiet for a moment, studying his tactical displays. His military instincts told him the human was right. Whatever was coming from deep space was a threat to everything living in the galaxy. "What do you propose?" "Full tactical coordination. Your fleet has speed and mobility. Our ships have firepower and defensive capability. Together we might have a chance." Before Zexkor could respond, his sensor officer called out in alarm. "Sir, the unknown contacts just accelerated. They'll reach our position in 6 hours. On?" The Tara's Wrath, the Guardian AI, was preparing for the battle it had been designed to fight. But this time would be different. This time, humanity would face the Devourers without losing what made them human. "Colonel Jackson," the AI said, "the other temple ships in nearby systems are reporting ready status. We have over 50 fortress ships coming online across this sector of space." Amy felt the weight of command settling on her shoulders. She was about to lead humanity in a battle that would determine the fate of the entire galaxy. "All ships, this is Terra's Wrath. Prepare for combat operations. The Devourers are coming home." The ancient war gods of humanity had opened their eyes, and they were ready to remind the galaxy why the Terran Dominion had once ruled the stars. Captain Helen Davis had never expected to command a ship that could level mountains. The fortress ship Heaven's Hammer responded to her thoughts almost before she had them, its ancient systems reading her neural patterns and anticipating her needs. Around her, the command deck hummed with energy that made her feel more alive than she had ever been. "Captain Davis, this is Terra's Wrath. came Colonel Amy Jackson's voice over the communication system. "What's your status?" "All systems online." "Colonel, the ship is teaching me things I never knew I wanted to learn. It's like having the tactical knowledge of 1,000 generals downloaded directly into my brain." Helen wasn't exaggerating. The ship's AI was showing her battle strategies that spanned entire star systems, logistics operations that could supply fleets for decades, and manufacturing processes that could build new ships from asteroid materials. In a matter of hours, down in the fighter bays of the Terra's Wrath, Lieutenant Commander Paul Baker was experiencing something similar. The ancient fighter craft were unlike anything he had ever flown. They were sleek black vessels that seemed to move before he even touched the controls. "This is impossible," he muttered to himself as he settled into the pilot's seat. The moment his hands touched the flight controls, information flooded his mind. The fighter's capabilities, its weapon systems, its defensive measures, all became as familiar as if he had been flying it for years. "Baker, this is Colonel Jackson," came the voice through his helmet comm. "How are the fighters responding?" "They're incredible, Colonel. It's like they're reading my mind. I think about making the turn, and the ship is already doing it. The reaction time is faster than human reflexes should allow." "Good, because you're about to get a real test." On the main tactical display, the Devourer scout fleet was only 3 hours away. The sensors showed 37 ships of various sizes, all moving in patterns that seemed to ignore the normal laws of physics. Dr. Rachel Stone was deep in the technical sections of the Terra's Wrath, working with systems that shouldn't have been possible. The ship wasn't just a weapon, she had discovered. It was a factory, a fortress, and a city all rolled into one massive vessel. "Amanda, you need to see this," she called over the comm. "The ship has manufacturing bays that can build entire fleets. The raw material processors can break down asteroids and turn them into hull plating in minutes." Amanda Blake was in the command center with Colonel Jackson, trying to understand the strategic situation. The information flowing from the ship's databases was overwhelming. The original Terran Dominion had controlled over 300 star systems and maintained a fleet of more than 10,000 ships. "Colonel, according to the historical records, individual Terran commanders regularly managed battles involving thousands of ships across multiple star systems simultaneously." Amy Jackson nodded grimly. "I can feel it happening to me already. The ship is changing how I think. I'm processing tactical information at a rate that should be impossible. It's like my brain is being upgraded in real time." The first test of their new capabilities came sooner than expected. A Mordani scout ship had gotten too close to one of the approaching Devourer vessels and was now under attack. "Fleet Admiral." Zexcor's voice crackled across the emergency frequency. "Human vessels, this is Admiral Zexcor. The enemy has engaged one of my scouts. The ship is being consumed. Its hull is dissolving." Colonel Jackson felt the tactical situation flow through her mind like water. She could see the positions of every ship in the system, their capabilities, their weaknesses, and the optimal response to the threat. "Captain Davis, take Heaven's Hammer and 2 escort ships. Intercept that Devourer vessel before it can finish with the Mordani scout." "Understood, Colonel." Helen Davis felt the massive fortress ship respond to her commands with impossible grace. For something the size of a city, Heaven's Hammer moved like a fighter craft. The ancient engines pushed the ship forward at speeds that should have crushed everyone aboard. But some kind of inertial dampening system made the acceleration feel like a gentle push. The battle was brief but devastating. The Devourer vessel was perhaps half the size of Heaven's Hammer, its dark hull rippling and changing shape as it fed on the Mordani scout ship. When Helen's ship opened fire, the difference in technology became immediately apparent. The Heaven's Hammer's weapons weren't just energy beams or projectiles. They were reality-altering devices that seemed to cut through space itself. The Devourer's ship, which had been absorbing everything the Mordani could throw at it, simply ceased to exist when the ancient Terran weapons hit it. "Target destroyed," Helen reported, her voice calm despite the fact that she had just witnessed something that challenged her understanding of physics. On his flagship, Admiral Zexkor stared at his tactical displays in disbelief. The human ship had destroyed the Devourer vessel with a single shot. One moment the enemy was there, and the next it was gone, leaving no debris, no energy signature, nothing. Communications get me a direct line to Colonel Jackson. When the connection was established, Zexkor spoke with uncharacteristic humility. "Colonel, the Mordani Collective formally requests inclusion in your tactical formation." "Granted, Admiral. But understand that this is just the beginning." That was one scout ship. The main Devourer force will be much larger and much more dangerous. Engineer Tyler Brooks was deep in the manufacturing sections of Heaven's Hammer, watching ancient machinery build new ships with impossible speed. Raw materials went in one end of the process, and completed fighter craft came out the other. The entire production line was automated and could run continuously as long as materials were available. "The resource efficiency is incredible," he reported to Captain Davis. "We can build a new fighter every 10 minutes, and the ship is already mining asteroids for raw materials." This was how the Terran Dominion had maintained its massive fleets, Tyler realized. Each fortress ship was essentially a mobile shipyard that could replace losses faster than most enemies could inflict them. Back on the Terra's Wrath, Colonel Jackson was coordinating with fortress ships across the entire sector. The tactical display showed the positions of 53 ancient vessels, all coming online and preparing for battle. But more importantly, it showed the humans operating them. "This is the part that worries me," Amanda said quietly. "Look at the psychological profiles the ship is generating on our people." Amy looked at the data Amanda was indicating. The ship's AI was monitoring the mental states of every human aboard the temple ships, and the results were troubling. Their tactical thinking was becoming more sophisticated, but also more cold and calculating. "The ship is changing us," Amanda continued, "making us more like the original Terran commanders. More efficient, more strategic, but also more willing to make hard choices." Before Amy could respond, the long-range sensors detected new contacts. The main Devourer force had arrived at the edge of the system, and it was massive. Hundreds of ships, some larger than the fortress ships themselves, moving in formations that seemed to bend space around them. "All ships, this is Colonel Jackson," Amy broadcast across all frequencies. "The enemy main force has arrived. Estimated strength: 400 vessels of unknown capability. All human and allied forces, prepare for full combat operations." Lieutenant Commander Baker climbed into his fighter and felt the ancient systems integrate with his nervous system. Around him, dozens of other human pilots were doing the same, their minds adapting to technology that turned them into living weapons. The battle was about to begin, and humanity was about to discover whether they could use their inherited power without losing their souls in the process. The Devourers had returned to finish what they started, but this time they would face humans who remembered how to wage war on a galactic scale. In the depths of space, ancient enemies prepared to clash once again, and the fate of every living thing in the galaxy hung in the balance. The main Devourer fleet moved through space like a living shadow, their ships bending reality around them as they advanced toward the human defensive line. Colonel Amy Jackson stood on the bridge of Terra's Wrath, her mind processing tactical information from 53 fortress ships simultaneously. The ancient AI systems had changed her, made her into something more than human, but she fought to hold on to the part of herself that remembered why they were fighting. "All ships, this is Terra's Wrath," she broadcast across the fleet. "The enemy has 400 confirmed vessels. They will try to overwhelm us with numbers and absorb our energy weapons. Do not let them get close enough to begin the consumption process. Admiral Lisa Carter watched from the horizon as the massive human fleet prepared for battle. The fortress ships had arranged themselves in a formation that looked random to her. But she knew that Amy Jackson was seeing patterns and strategies that normal human minds couldn't comprehend. "Admiral," reported her sensor officer, "the Ethereal Council fleet just dropped out of hyperspace. They're demanding that all forces stand down immediately." Lisa cursed under her breath. The Ethereal Council was supposed to maintain peace in the galaxy, but their timing couldn't have been worse. Their ships appeared between the human fleet and the advancing Devourers, apparently trying to prevent the battle. On the Terra's wrath, Amy received the communication from Ethereal Council Fleet Commander Velthara. The alien's voice was calm and superior as always. "Human Commander, you will cease all military operations immediately. The Council cannot allow the use of such dangerous weapons in civilized space." "Commander Velthara, you don't understand what you're dealing with. Those ships are Devourers. They will consume your fleet and use the energy to create more of themselves. We have faced many threats before, human. Our peacekeeping methods have maintained stability for thousands of years." Amy felt the tactical situation shifting in her mind like a three-dimensional puzzle. The ethereal ships were powerful, but they were designed for policing actions against conventional forces. Against the Devourers, their peaceful approach would be suicide. "Commander, I'm uploading historical data from our archives. Please review it before you make any decisions." The data package contained everything the Temple ships had recorded about the original war with the Devourers. As Velthara reviewed it, her confident tone began to change. "This cannot be accurate. No species has the capability to consume entire star systems. Watch your long-range sensors, Commander. You'll see for yourself." The first contact between the Ethereal Fleet and the Devourer Advance Guard happened 30 minutes later. The ethereal ships tried their standard pacification techniques, broadcasting calming frequencies and deploying containment fields. Devourers responded by beginning to feed. Captain Helen Davis watched in horror as the elegant, ethereal vessels simply dissolved, their energy being absorbed into the dark hulls of the enemy ships. "Colonel Jackson, the ethereal fleet is being consumed. Should we intervene?" Amy felt the weight of command crushing down on her. The ancient systems were urging her to let the ethereals be destroyed, to use their sacrifice as tactical data for the main battle, but the human part of her wouldn't allow it. "All ships, emergency acceleration. We're moving up the timetable." The fortress ships responded instantly, their massive hulls surging forward with impossible speed. Lieutenant Commander Paul Baker led the first wave of fighters, the ancient craft moving in perfect coordination as they raced to intercept the Devourers before they could finish consuming the ethereal fleet. The battle that followed would be remembered as the moment humanity truly returned to the galactic stage. The fortress ships fought with a precision and brutality that shocked even their allies. Each vessel was a weapon of mass destruction, capable of cracking planets, but they were being used with surgical precision to avoid harming the few remaining ethereal ships. Dr. Rachel Stone watched from the technical sections as the Terra's wrath manufactured new fighters and weapons in real time, replacing losses faster than the enemy could inflict them. "Amanda, the resource consumption rate is incredible. We're burning through asteroid fields like fuel." Amanda Blake was experiencing something she hadn't expected. As she interfaced with the ship's historical databases, she was seeing memories of the original Terran Dominion. The ancient humans hadn't started as conquerors. They had been explorers, scientists, and peacekeepers. But the constant warfare had changed them, made them harder and more focused on victory than on the lives they were protecting. "Rachel, I'm seeing why the original Dominion chose to retreat. They won every battle, but they lost themselves in the process. The main battle was reaching its climax. Admiral Zexcor's Mordani forces had proven surprisingly effective at harassing the Devourer flanks, their speed and mobility allowing them to strike and retreat before the enemy could respond. But the core of the Devourer fleet was still intact, and it was massive. "Colonel Jackson," came Tyler Brooks' voice from the Heaven's Hammer, "we've identified what looks like the enemy command ship. It's the size of a small moon, and it's coordinating all the other vessels." Amy studied the tactical display. The Devourer command ship was protected by layers of smaller vessels, but she could see a way through. It would require perfect coordination from all 53 fortress ships and would leave them vulnerable to counterattack. "All ships, this is Terra's Wrath. Executing attack pattern Omega-7. Target the command vessel. If we can destroy their coordination, the rest of the fleet will be vulnerable." The attack was like watching a perfectly choreographed dance of destruction. The fortress ships moved in patterns that seemed impossible, their weapons firing in sequence to create gaps in the enemy formation. Fighter squadrons led by Paul Baker swept through these gaps, striking at critical points before retreating. But the cost was heavy. 3 fortress ships were heavily damaged, and dozens of fighters were lost. Amy felt each loss like a physical blow, but the ancient tactical systems in her mind were already calculating acceptable casualty rates and resource expenditures. Moment of decision came when the Terra's Wrath broke through the final layer of Devourer defenders and faced the command ship directly. The enemy vessel was a thing of nightmare, constantly shifting and changing shape as it tried to adapt to their attacks. "All weapons full power," Amy ordered. The Terra's Wrath unleashed everything it had. Weapons that could shatter planets focused their fury on a single target. For a moment, the command ship seemed to resist, its hull absorbing and redirecting the massive energy assault. Then, suddenly, it simply collapsed in on itself and disappeared. The effect on the Devourer fleet was immediate. Without their command ship, the individual vessels lost coordination and began to retreat toward the edge of the system. The human fleet pursued, but Amy called them back before they could follow the enemy into deep space. "All ships, halt pursuit. We've won this battle, but the war isn't over." In the aftermath, as the fleet regrouped and began rescue operations, Amanda Blake made a disturbing discovery. The psychological profiles of the human crews showed significant changes. They were becoming more like the original Terran commanders, more focused on tactical efficiency and less concerned with individual lives. "Amy," she said privately to Colonel Jackson, "we need to be careful. The ships are changing us, making us into weapons just like they are." Amy nodded grimly. She could feel it happening to herself. The temptation to use their overwhelming power to impose order on the galaxy was growing stronger every day. Commander Valthara, one of the few ethereal survivors, approached them with a request that would change everything. "Colonel Jackson, the Council formally recognizes humanity as the rightful inheritors of the Terran Dominion. We request that you accept the role of Galactic Protectors." Amy looked out at the fortress ships floating in space around them, each one capable of destroying entire civilizations. The power was intoxicating, but she remembered the lessons of the past. "We'll protect the galaxy, Commander. But we'll do it our way, not the way of the old Dominion." As the human fleet prepared to return home, children on human colonies were already learning new subjects in school. Tactical analysis and strategic planning were becoming core curriculum, preparing the next generation for the responsibilities of their inherited power. The temples had awakened, and humanity's war gods had opened their eyes. The galaxy would never be the same.